Hello, everyone. Rich Longo with the Duquesne University Small Business Development Center. Again, welcome you all to our podcast. Today with us is Tia Christopher, founder of the Orange Peel Collaborative. So Tia, welcome and thank you for coming in. So talk to us a little bit about your evolution, what you did, how it got you to the point of making a decision to become an entrepreneur.
Thank you again for having me.
Absolutely.
And I, started my career after high school in the Navy, got injured, and so that was the first, don't the monopoly, end up back in jail. Do not collect $1 million, go back and start over. And so I had to figure out, what am I going to do now? And so I started working in the nonprofit space, and while I was working, I was also in college, and my college thesis was on transitioning out of the military. And I wrote a manual on transitioning out of the military where I translated complex government benefits, because the government benefits, the healthcare, education are incredible, but it can be really confusing, especially if you're 19, 20 years old. So I wrote a manual that had pictures of my friends, and it was fresh and young and was accessible, and it worked. It got people registering for government benefits. So that's how I launched my career, and I worked for a long time in the military veteran space, and then also worked in the private sector, in the agriculture industry. I've worked back in the nonprofit sector in the agriculture industry, and very accidentally, I ended up in the tech space. About 7 years ago, I've worked my way up in my career in strategic ops in nonprofits to be a COO a few times, and I took on a leading ops role, and I totally missed where it said AI. I saw that it was funded by the UN. I wanted to diversify my portfolio from domestic to international, and ended up working for a tech for good nonprofit. And I had to learn really quick what AI was, what machine learning was. And what I honed in on was there's this divide between these really brilliant tech creators, these builders who some of them, they are building solutions that could really help all of us.
Yes.
But they don't always know how to explain it in plain language. So if you follow my thread back 20 years ago, how I started. And so I started breaking down into plain language their tech solutions and how those could be implemented in the market and in our day-to-day, and how I could bridge these two communities.
I think what happens, we do this all the time, especially when clients come in and they have a technology. So they have a prototype, or they have an invention, or they have an idea. The beauty of that intellect is that they're so entwined and so ingrained and so knowledgeable of the technology. But to put it into the language where an investor might be interested, or a grantor might be interested. So we often find that same challenge. So it's interesting. How do you take that and put it into the language and communication that would make a general audience or some individual of interest want to take you on? Cindi, what's your experience there?
Yeah, I would agree. I think what really, the name Orange Pill Collaborative was really interesting to me when I first met Tia, and I thought, what does that have to do with her name? Because her business, because we focus a lot on that when we first meet with our clients, like your name should reflect what you do. And so the Orange Pill, I think she eloquently explains it by saying, like, AI and technology is kind of like this orange, and you're peeling away the layers of it and finding what's underneath it. And then once I really understood that concept, and I thought, oh, Orange Pill Collaborative is a great name for exactly what she's doing.
Interesting. So when so now you kind of made the plunge, and you wanted to go. So what brought you then to that decision of saying, I'm going to try this on my own?
It's really humbling to be laid off almost back to back in your early 40s. And I went from being financially doing really well to collecting unemployment. And
Been there, done that.
And I feel like, the whole old adage, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on. So, two layoffs, I was like, I need to maybe find a different solution. Someone suggested I become an entrepreneur, and I laughed. I'm a COO. I work.
You're an ops person.
Yeah, I
Right,
execute
right.
the vision of a CEO.
right.
Tell me what you want, and I am going to get it done. That's what I've always loved and known about myself. And the concept of actually executing my own vision was terrifying. But then the more I got started into it, I'm seriously smiling so big every time, like every moment I have to work on my business. And I know that this is the right path for me. And I chose the AI integration support service space because, quite frankly, it's smart business.
So the question for you is, because of your own experiences in the work world, you were able to see the conundrum between the technological side of AI and how the operational implications or the understanding and use of that might come through. I think that's a pretty innovative and very cutting edge on your part, because again, if you can't put AI as a bot, people, it's not a human being. You've got to be able to understand it's only the input that you put into it that's going to give you, the meaningful response or the most appropriate response. So how did you come into contact with us, and tell me about your work with Cindi here?
So I think that the government resources for entrepreneurs are underutilized by my peers. I have accessed everything I can, from veteran business outreach centers to the SBDC. And I take the courses, I go to the webinars, I talk to the different experts, I get counseling from everything from marketing to finances, I fill my gaps. And I don't know why more people seriously do not do this. Cindi is incredible because not only is she an expert on these different programs and services, but then she also knows people. I am a transplant to Pittsburgh. I chose Pittsburgh because it is a tech hub. It's also the robotics capital of the world. Random, I know, but true.
Yes.
So it's a great business ground for me. But I don't know the ins and outs of Pittsburgh, and Cindi does. And so we talk about everything from funding opportunities to training to possible business collaborations. And and she reviews my decks, my business plan. What am I forgetting?
Tia does everything right, so there's not a whole lot for me to really do other than to be her cheerleader, which I am, of course, and which is why I recommended that we have her come in. I think she represents a really unique perspective that a lot of potential clients need to hear, which is that being an entrepreneur is an option. And you're right, there's so many resources available. I'm amazed at how many resources are available. But what's interesting that you brought out, Tia, and it piggybacks on what Rich says about AI. AI, you only get out of it the input and the prompts that you give it. And similarly with the SBDC and the services that we offer, as a client, you can only benefit if you take advantage of the resources available to you. So what you put in as a client is really equal to what you get out of it. So, you're following your own mantra in your business. So you're clearly in the right business.
So again, one of the things that I've been thinking about, or the center has been thinking about, kind of dovetails on what you've done. Even with the greatest advantages that I think AI will bring, to Cindi's point, it's a resource. It's not a substitution. We see many people who think, I'm just going to have AI write my business plan. And then I look at it and it's like, it's a resource. You can use it in entrepreneurship, but it does not replace the brain cell, the human mind, the sweat equity that has to go in, to a business. So one of the things that we've been talking about is doing that very thing here at the SBDC, trying to integrate, okay, how does AI as a bot serve as a resource, not as a substitute? Secondarily, the negative side, at least in my opinion, on AI is there's going to be a significant number of job losses. And so I'm thinking, okay, those individuals, how many of them, like me, might have thought about being an entrepreneur, but you know what? Collected a pretty nice hefty paycheck. And all the days that I would say, you know, I'm tired of the stress, I wouldn't do it. It took that downsizing for me after 10 years in a position to finally say, you know, okay, let me take that leap. From your perspective, do you feel that that's a valid assumption to say at some point people are probably going to be losing their jobs or have to be educated differently?
That's a fantastic question, and I like to make it very clear that as a business owner and as a thought leader in this space, I am tech agnostic. I'm not here to tell you that tech is going to take all our jobs and blow up the planet. I'm also not here to tell you that AI is better than humans and that AI should be used for everything.
Okay.
A lot of people in the AI integration space that I work in, they approach it from, do you know the latest, greatest tool? Cindi, you need to try this app and you need to do this. And you know what? You should run your office different with this tech and this tech and this tech. That is not what my company does at all. We've come in and we assess, we ask questions, we listen and learn, and we partner with the tech companies that are selling you their solutions to find what actually works for you so that you're not spending more money than you need to. You are not preemptively letting go employees that you can't get that brain trust back. We are taking a more nuanced approach to it. And, you know, I want to give an example. I was at a manufacturing summit and I met some PA business owners in the manufacturing space. And do you know what they told me? They said they have some employees who are almost approaching retirement and they have a very technical set of skills. And it's irreplaceable by machines. There isn't AI or robotics to replace them. And they reiterated how valuable these people are. And then they talked about some of the automation and robotics that they're now using. And then they talked about the younger workforce and how they're coming in, they don't have the skill set of the older workforce, they learn differently, and how their business is growing and working better by integrating the three. And I think that's how we optimize AI. I think this cut and burn or whatever, just fire, replace, I think that is naive and harmful. Yeah. I also think, though, not smartly using these tools, it puts us at a detriment. So that's my approach to it. And this Pennsylvania family-run business is a great example how to do it right.
Thank you.
Can I just jump in here?
Yeah.
I think one of the things that you mentioned that your company does, and I think Rich would agree with it, it's something that the consultants do, and it's a human component to a large extent, which is just that assessment. I think that's the step one for everything. Like when I'm working with a client, just like when you're working with a client, my first step is to just listen and hear. I don't want to go in with a predetermined idea of what they need or what they want. So when you're listening and you're hearing, which is a human element, and then you're assessing what do they need and you're basing it on what they need and on what you think they need, I think that's a really big difference. And I love that Tia's approach with her business is to really go in and try to determine what does the business need and how can I provide the services to help them.
So if you had, as we always say, you know, everybody is Bill Gates or Elon Musk on Monday morning after a game, right? What would you say if it would be, if you had to change anything, if you had to do anything over, what might it have been? Say, you know, I've made my greatest strength, greatest weakness. If I had the magic wand, what would I have changed? What would I have done differently?
In my whole career,
Just in terms of your entrepreneurship journey.
I launched in California and then moved to Pittsburgh 2 months later. And if I could tell I thought I was being so responsible by setting up my LLC, doing all these things. Get your life in order before you get, the state and taxes involved, because there are fantastic. I actually worked with the free legal clinic out of Penn State who helped me with my LLC process here. Shout out, by the way, if you are a veteran like me, it's free to open a business in Pennsylvania. But the dissolution process of my California business and then the opening of, if I would have just waited a beat and before I did the formal LLC filing, I would have saved myself a lot of headaches. So it is good to be proactive and to go through the steps, but maybe take a beat and get your life in order before you make big business decisions.
That's good advice.
Great advice. So we talked about, okay, if I had to do it again. So let's counter that with, so far in your journey, what do you think's been your greatest success?
I love people. I love meeting people. I'm curious. I was an Arabic linguist in the military because I love to speak with people in their first language.
Do you speak Arabic?
Yes, I do.
My wife is Lebanese.
Oh, we can talk about so many things. My partner is Mexican, and I used to live in Mexico. We speak Spanish. I also speak French, but now I'm rambling. So I love language. I love people, and it's ironic that I'm now running an AI company that people say, well, that could replace people, and I'm like, no, but I'm here to be here for the people, and the people that I have had the privilege to meet, like Cindi, and like the folks that run the VBOC for Pennsylvania, and the people at the Apex Accelerators, as well as other entrepreneurs, the people at the Pittsburgh Tech Council. I have a new best friend who's a fellow woman entrepreneur. For me, that is my greatest success, these early collaborations. I am going to be doing a talk with the Nerd Lawyer, and we just did a blog together. People are my successes, this network, and the more that we network and collaborate, I think the more we can lean into our humanity and make a better future.
Good. So tell me, what your experience? So what's been your experience with the SBDC? Tell me about your experience with us and what you've gained or any suggestions you might have.
I think one of the things I like the most about working with Cindi is, she gets back to me right away. And as a solo entrepreneur, sometimes it's really overwhelming. I brought on business partners, but it's still, my baby, my project. And I have lifelines with the SBDC. Not only is someone there on the other end of the phone or the email or literally a few blocks away, but then she comes with resources. So if I want to make myself better, if I want to truly solve the problem, not just talk about it, there are free webinars or trainings, that I can attend, pitch contests, things like that. And I just really, really appreciate that. And I think entrepreneurs need to know that they're not alone.
Yeah, I agree.
And I also think, though, how to maximize the SBDC. I also use the Apex Accelerators. I also use other SBA resources. I go to the VBOC, and I get different opinions on my decks. I get advice from these different experts. And I really believe in order to succeed, having this full ecosystem that we have is invaluable.
Well, I want to thank you for coming in. Thank you for sharing your story. On behalf of all of us here at the SBDC, we wish you the best and the most continued success. And I'm glad to hear that your relationship with Cindi, and Cindi, the work that you're doing with this client is both recognized and appreciated. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you.